Hello and welcome here from Chicago. I'm at the Academy of Behavioral Finance and Economics annual meeting, and I'm very grateful to Professor Semmler and Professor Alec Gevorkian to organize the Macroeconomics in Uncertain Times meeting, and that I can be part of it remotely. My research will focus on climate wealth of nations. And here we have the surface temperature of the Earth since we have records since 1880. And as we can see here, from the 1980s on, temperature is rising, and especially after 2000, temperature is through the roof. There is something going on with in terms of a warming Earth. And that's why I incepted the Mapping Climate Justice project. It's a three-dimensional approach to tackle climate justice. On the one hand, within a country, so equal distribution of climate change burden within a society. Then fairness between countries. I will speak more about this in a minute, but this is the idea that countries that have a higher burden of climate change should be receiving from countries that are benefiting from a warming globe. And then climate justice over time, fairness in between generations, intergenerational conscientiousness, and Professor Semmler has excellent research on the climate change burden sharing with climate bonds. First, I calculated the climate change benefits. So we have the surface temperature around the globe, we have a medium temperature per country, and we do have GDP production in terms of agriculture, service and industry sector. And there is in the literature something like the cardinal temperature, which is the optimal temperature for these GDP pillars, agriculture, service and industry. And around the globe we have for every nation the composition of GDP. And with that, you can calculate how hot it, or you have the projections how hot it will be in 2100. And then you can calculate where each nation state will stand in terms of the optimal GDP production with regards to their GDP production composition. I did, thanks to a suggestion by Professor Semmler, I did calculate a linear, prospect and hyperbolic model, so a linear prospect model and a hyperbolic model over the climate change gains and losses around the cardinal temperature for GDP production. And what I find, shockingly, in a worldwide data set of 188 countries around the world, where I have the medium temperature, their GDP production, and the cardinal temperature, I find that until 2100, the Earth itself will gain more from a warming globe than lose. 111 countries will lose more than 77 will be gaining. Here you have the composition of 1/3 countries, 1/3 countries, and 1/3 countries. And green stands for these countries will be winning, yellow for these countries that will be around the peak condition, and red for countries that will have run out of time in terms of their optimal economic performance. This is how it is comprised all over the world, and on the web you find on my homepage an interactive graph, and for each continent the figures, in case you want to see it in more detail. And then I also did 1/3 of gains, and here you see this yellow bar shifts up, which means only a few countries are winning way more than the rest of countries will be losing. Who are the winners? So we have Canada, Russia, Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Iceland, Finland, Norway, and Sweden are the top winners. Per inhabitant, it's Liechtenstein, San Marino, Monaco, Iceland, Luxembourg, Bhutan, Montenegro, Estonia, Mongolia, Latvia, Slovenia. Who is losing? Qatar, Bahrain, Brunei, UAE, Kiribati, Mauritania, Tuvalu, Djibouti, Senegal, and Burkina Faso. And per inhabitant, you see it's small nation island states: Tuvalu, Palau, Marshall Islands, Kiribati, Seychelles, Antigua, St. Vincent. So already these countries, or these small nation island states that are having problems with the rising sea level, are also the climate change losers per inhabitant. I also find in 181 countries that there is a highly significant positive correlation between being on the winning side of climate change and carbon greenhouse gas emissions, and those are self-reported greenhouse gas emissions around the world. So also those countries that are gaining are also offsetting climate change. I only do this strain of research in order to show how to redistribute the gains from the warming Earth into the countries that are losing. Here is the data, the model behind it, and in terms of data, I show how to transfer it. So the transfer grantors per inhabitant, and I factor in here GDP per inhabitant, are Liechtenstein, Canada, Norway, Iceland, Switzerland, Luxembourg, Finland, Monaco, Denmark, Austria, and the US. Should be, in my model, giving to Qatar, UAE, Singapore, Brunei, Bahrain, Kuwait, Trinidad, Saudi Arabia. And here you see that these transfers are highly politically sensitive. So it's the Christian Protestant club paying into the Arab world. And out of the idea that this might face a political resistance, here you see it one more time on the graph. Green and yellow should be given to pink and red. I also find here that migration streams, human migration inflow is already going on into the climate change winning areas. And there are also already financial inflows, so climate change winning countries receive more foreign direct investment inflows, but there are no remittances going back to those countries that are losing. Out of this politically sensitive argument that the Protestant Christian world should be paying into the Arab world, came the idea to also open up looking into what does the cardinal temperature mean. So for the agriculture sector, I started collecting literature and information on the temperature range of different crops. Here you can see in red, that's on the left-hand side. In red, you see the stop point. At what temperature do we stop having these crops being available? And yellow is the optimal temperature, and blue is the top temperature. Here you see different crops. I will show it in a second larger. But just to make a case here, you see in the first purple line, this is where we stand in terms of medium temperature around the globe. And this is where we will be standing in 2100. And blue is the optimal temperature for crop or agriculture production. So you see we do have time ahead when it comes to agriculture. The temperature range in Celsius for different crops. So what crops will be able to have longer than others? Beans, pak choy, peas, cabbage, carrots, red beet, milk, thistle, onions, ryegrass, Chinese cabbage, Asian radish, corn, and parsnips. And spinach, rhubarb, radish, peas, parsley, onions, and leeks have a lower temperature range. For industry sector, just in short, I can say that there's also something like a top temperature for human production. We still have time ahead when it comes to this. But currently we are, with a medium temperature around the globe, we are in a heating-cooling switch period. So we can make market predictions that there will be more cooling devices than heating devices coming up. Service sector has also something like top temperature, which is usually centered around 25 degrees or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. And the peak temperature for production, we still have time ahead. We are still somehow in the comfort zone, but one thing that is very striking is that soon we might have bacteria in the water to be fought because of climate change. Then I make this argument that future wealth of nations might be based on climate flexibility, and this is a persiflage on Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. And then here I make the case that those countries that will be having a broader range of climate temperature, we will have a better means to trade, to grow crops, to be productive longer. And here's the chart for temperature range determining climate flexibility. So the US, Russia, Canada, Pakistan, China, Afghanistan, Iran, Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, Italy, Turkey, Sweden, Finland, and Bosnia, Austria, Norway, Germany will be on the top climate flexibility countries, and that's based on latitude and altitude. and Burkina Faso, Belgium, Maldives, Singapore, Antigua, Samoa, Malaysia, Cambodia, Puerto Rico, Panama, Cuba, Malta, and Bangladesh have the lowest range of flexibility. Again, I did find significant migration, human inflows into the climate flexible countries, but I find no significant correlation of FDI, so foreign direct investment inflows are not significantly inflowing. And then the last argument I want to make is we do have this idea that market performance is based on expectations. We do might have expectations about crops running out, and especially with this negative communication about climate change will shorten our horizon and we will not be able to grow crops. We might have with this argumentation around 2000 where climate change started really becoming mainstream, that we see it in the graph that the climate is really out of whack since 2000. With all the communication, we might have created an expectation, and usually expectations are very positive price expectations, so rising prices. But here, I think with climate change, we are creating an expectation of scarcity, and that might drive up commodity prices. I really looked at it over time, and here you can see from 2000 on, commodity prices are higher, and after the crisis, while other industries have, after 10 years after the crisis, now gone back to a pre-crisis level, commodity prices are still highly significantly different. So there might be something that commodity prices are still inflated based on the idea of scarcity that comes from climate change. And in the developed world, that might not be a problem, but there's a UN report out that says that especially commodity prices being overinflated creates a problem for countries in which people use basically all their income in order to sustain and maintain nutrition. Beverages are also, since 2000, out of whack, and after the crisis they haven't gone down to the pre-crisis level. And then that's where the research currently stands. I have this graph where I make predictions about scarcity. When do we run out of what kind of crops in terms of, so it's based on the maximum temperature that we can grow crops, and with that we can make market predictions when these prices might be inflating. But as we can see here again, the purple lines are where we are currently standing. This is Central and South Africa, Africa and Australia, where they are standing. So we can see that the cool season crops are inflated, or the price might be inflated, and the next step will be to not use the normal curves, but really backtest it with data and draw a better shape of the actual data of what we have currently in Australia, what's going on with full season crops, if they're really different. And with that, I leave it up to market trends. Investments in insurances are predicted to be interested in this. Mergers and conglomerates might include climate-related risks and shortages based on this. Search price strategies are interesting, so have a discounting option for seasons in which we have climate being more of a pressure. Then there is the expected division of the entire market into high luxury prices for things that we are running out of. We see it already in the winter season and skiing season. It has become a luxury market, and weather independent sales on the side we should think of in order to create diversification in the market and still have market success, although we are living in the age of climate change. And with that, I'll leave it up to you. I thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this excellent meeting, and also to allow me to do it remotely here in Chicago.